In the morning of April 20th, 1999, something occurred that had never happened before in history. It was a massacre at a school in Little Rock, Colorado, whom we all remember as the Columbine shooting. This school was Columbine High School. Two students who were attending this school became good friends. They had classes together, and their friendship grew bigger from being a part of the school's bowling team. The two students were 18-year-old Eric Harris and 17-year-old Dylan Klebold. They were very good friends and would normally hang out after school, as well on weekends. Eric grew up with his older brother and two parents. His father was an Air Force pilot and his mother a homemaker. Dylan as well grew up with his parents and older brother. His father was a sculptor, but then became an engineer for his family to be more financially stable. And his mother was a teacher for students with severe disabilities. The family of Eric Harris were never publicly known as religious. They lived a modest military lifestyle, changing homes every few years. His parents wanted him to get a part-time job so that he would be doing something productive outside of school rather than sitting at home playing video games all the time. Eric then started work in this part-time job near his home and school at the Blackjack Pizza Shop. He did simple roles in the restaurant and then started being trusted for more responsibilities as he gained experience, achieving the role of a shift manager. His friend Dylan then became interested in working a part-time job as well and started working at the pizza shop. By going to school, playing sports, and working together, both Eric and Dylan grew closer and started hanging out at their homes as well. They loved video games, music, costumes, and books. Their favorite video game was Doom, and their favorite band was KMFDM. When going shopping together, they would purchase unique clothing, a black trench coat, and t-shirt themed out of horror movies such as Natural Selection. They suffered bullying in school and started to really hate people. Eric had enlisted to join the U.S. Marine Corps, but his application was rejected due to an antidepressant he was taking. Dylan had planned to attend the University of Arizona after graduating high school. His parents were Christian and would take their kids to their local Lutheran church on Sundays. Dylan and his brother took confirmation classes there. The parents had stress in their relationship, but they chose to stay together until both of their kids finished school and started living independently. Both Eric and Dylan kept diaries, where they journaled about their anger and depression. They gained an interest in computers, and at one point were suspended from school for damaging the computer systems. In 1996, Eric started a blog on a software called American Online, which was mainly used by video game players seeking to communicate with one another. He started posting content about the video games he played. The theme of these posts would then change. Eric started discussing activities that he claimed to do, such as vandalism, mischief, lighting fireworks, and sneaking out of home. He called this behavior rebel missions. The following year, Eric started expressing hatred towards society in his blog posts. He would later that year as well start posting instructions on making homemade explosives. The blog had very few visitors and nobody really cared about what Eric would write on there, until he made one more blog post, which stated, "All I want to do is kill and injure as many as you as I can, especially a few people, like Brooks Brown." The person whom he mentioned, Brooks Brown, was a classmate of his. Brooks saw this post and informed his parents about it. The Brown parents then reported Eric Harris to the police. Colorado's Jefferson County Sheriff's Office received the parents' tip and requested a warrant to search Eric's home for anything incriminating. This search had been requested but was never done. because the warrant never made it to court. On January 30th, 1998, Eric and Dylan were arrested near Littleton, Colorado, for breaking into a white van that had been parked. They had stolen tools and computer equipment from the van. Both were taken to the Littleton police station and released to their parents. They were charged with felony theft in order to appear in court. Both then appeared in one of Jefferson County's juvenile court dockets and pleaded guilty to the theft charge with a bargain that had been offered to them. They were immediately sentenced to complete a juvenile diversion program. This program would require them to meet with diversion officers and take anger management classes. Both did very well in the program and were excused from completing it. They were put on probation instead and finished it. Eric then changed his blog and would only post video game content. In his journal, he wrote thoughts of the van break-in, showing no remorse about it, claiming how idiotic it was to just leave the van sitting there by itself. Dylan had been writing in his journal since March 1997, writing about personal problems, describing his suicidal ideation, and how he wanted a gun to kill himself. About 8 months later, he wrote about going on a killing spree. Dylan vowed to carry a rifle and wear a black trench coat during the spree. When he spoke to Eric about wanting to commit this killing spree, they both became more motivated and started plotting it down. They planned to evade police after killing people, and then go to the Denver International Airport to either escape to a foreign country or hijack a plane in order to crash it into New York City. Both would then start journaling about graphic topics. Dylan shamed certain sexual interests, such as bondage and having a foot fetish, which is common in high school. He stated, "My humanity has a foot fetish and bondage extreme sick liking. I try to thwart it." Eric journaled about how he wanted to have sex with women, as well as a desire to rape and torture women in his bedroom. He also discussed his interest in cannibalism, claiming that he wanted to dismember a woman whom he could have animalistic sex with and eat her flesh. These descriptions of violence would then spread to their schoolwork, and as time passed, their writings would get more gruesome. In one of their classes, they would be assigned creative writing projects. In December 1997, before winter break, Eric wrote a paper called Guns in School, which was about school shootings. He as well wrote a poem, which did not seem as concerning, but all of its words were grouped together, forming the shape of a bullet. Dylan wrote a short story about a man killing students, which really concerned his teacher. This teacher contacted his parents and informed them about Dylan's story. His parents were both ashamed and confronted him about it. Both Eric and Dylan started researching topics about war and murder. At one point, they were assigned to write research papers. Eric wrote his paper on Nazi Germany and Dylan on California murder cultist Charles Manson. Eric was taking a psychology class. In one of his projects, he wrote a statement claiming that he wanted to go on a shooting spree with Dylan. In his journal, he started taking notes about explosives that he would make and experiment with. After their junior year of high school in 1998, Dylan wrote on Eric's yearbook, "Killing enemies, blowing up stuff, killing cops. My wrath for January's incident will be godlike, not to mention our revenge in the Commons." In case you were unaware, the Commons is what high school students call their school's cafeteria, which is usually the campus's main social area. One of their favorite classes in school was filmography. They kept and cherished 5 of the videotapes they had recorded with the school's equipment. These tapes were named by them, and only 3 of them have been publicly released, and the remaining 2 remain confiscated to this day as the government has banned them. The 3 released tapes were named Hitman for Hire, Rampart Rage, and Radioactive Cloven. In these tapes, they described how they would commit their massacre and why they would commit their massacre. They also shared how they deceived their parents and hid their weapons. Most of the tapes were shot in the basement of Eric's home. 30 minutes before the massacre, they made at least one tape, apologizing to their friends and families for what would soon occur. On April 20th, 1999, it was a sunny day in Littleton, Colorado. This day was known as 420, the day when Nazi leader Adolf Hitler was born. On this day as well, Dylan and Derek were ready to commit their planned massacre. The night before, they had packaged pipe bombs in their cars, as well as the guns they would use. Dylan and Derek arrived at school. On their way there, they left the pipe bombs in a public baseball field nearby. In school, they left backpacks in the cafeteria, which had pipe bombs inside them. Both then went outside and set the pipe bombs in the baseball field, causing police officers to arrive there, distracting them from what would soon happen to be inside the school. They set the bombs inside the cafeteria on fire. However, they did not cause the damage they wanted, so it was time for Plan B, shooting up the school. They entered with their fully loaded rifles and started shooting. The shooting left 21 people injured and 13 dead. 3 more were injured while evacuating the building, but that was not from gunshot wounds. These injured victims were taken to the Swedish Medical Center, the hospital used for the treatments of those affected by the massacre. They would eventually be released. Some suffered permanent disabilities due to the severity of their injuries. 17-year-old Cassie Bernal, whom her parents enrolled in this school to help her over mental health issues and substance abuse, had Eric say peekaboo and pound his head on the cafeteria table, which Cassie was hiding under. Eric then asked Cassie if she still believed in God. She replied yes, which led to Eric killing her. 14-year-old Stephen Kernow hid under the tables in the library and was killed by Eric. 17-year-old Corey DePuter hid under a table near windows and was shot by Dylan. He died later at the hospital. In the library, 16-year-old Kelly Fleming was hiding under one of the tables. Dylan injured 2 of her friends, shot 1 more, killing 18-year-old Lauren Townsend. Then pointed his gun at another friend and asked if she still believed in God. This friend replied yes. Dylan then ignored her and moved on to the next table. Eric then came over to Kelly, who was crouched down on her knees, and shot her in the back, killing her instantly, execution style. Dylan looked under one of the library tables, spotted Isaiah Scholes, a black student. Dylan called over Eric and called Isaiah by the N-word. That's when Eric shot him and Matthew Ketcher, who was sitting next to him. The shootings continued. In the end, 13 were killed and 24 injured. Both Eric and Dylan shot themselves in the library, instantly dying by suicide. All deceased bodies were taken to the Jefferson County Coroner's Office and later released to their caring funeral homes. All funerals were completed by the 29th day of that month. Several students committed suicide after the massacre. Jefferson County School Superintendent Jane Hammond closed all school districts. Colorado Governor Bill Owens declared a state of emergency. The state's legislature abandoned free gun-related bills. The National Rifle Association, otherwise known as NRA, had scheduled a convention near the Denver area, which happened to be the week of the shooting. However, they chose to reschedule it for the following week after speculations regarding gun violence unfolded. The Colorado Avalanche hockey team was about to be the state's focal point, but they canceled the first 2 playoff games due to the public's devastations caused by the shooting. The homes of the shooters were searched. 20-pound propane tank bombs were found planted in their kitchens. These types of bombs had also been planted inside the school. An investigation revealed that if they had worked in the school, hundreds of people would have died. A day after that event, officials learned that 3 guns used in the shooting were bought a year prior by Dylan Klebold's girlfriend, Robin Anderson, shortly after her 18th birthday. Robin spoke to detectives and claimed that Dylan had an interest in hunting. She thought he would use the guns for this hobby and would have never imagined that he would commit a school shooting. Therefore, prosecutors did not charge her with any crimes, and no legal action was ever taken against her. 22-year-olds Mark Maines and Philip Duran were criminally investigated and tied to a criminal probe within the state of Colorado for supplying guns to the shooters. They were all co-workers at their local Blackjack Pizzeria. On May 3rd, Mark Maines surrendered to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office's headquarters with his attorney, Robert Ransom. He admitted to selling one of the shooters, Dylan Klebold, a $500 handgun. He would then be booked into the Jefferson County Jail on a firearms offense. Shortly after, the same would occur for the other suspect involved, Philip Duran. Both were afterwards released on bail. They reached plea deals and pleaded guilty to their offenses. They then surrendered to custody 2 months later and were placed in undisclosed prisons for their safety. Maines was sentenced to 6 years in state prison and Duran to 4.5 years. Several lawsuits were filed and eventually settled. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Strawberry Inc. Please share it to your loved ones. Until next time, have a good day.